All right, everyone, we are live inside the pylon. Myself and Nick Falato taking all of your draft questions on this beautiful snowy Wednesday night in Chicago. Unfortunately, the winter that will never end. Nick, what's happening, man?
I mean, it's not snowing here in Jersey, so we're a little bit better off than you guys. It was about 50 degrees up here in Jersey.
A balmy 50 degrees.
Oh, no doubt, man. I'm ready to tackle some draft questions. It's going to be a good old time over here.
Good. Well, we want to do something a little different tonight. I know we usually do this in the audio medium, and Nick and I just like to look at each other every now and then just to get a sense of what of who we're looking at and who we're talking to. But we're about a week out until the draft, and we have a lot of questions that are still hanging out there. You get to this time of year, and there's the overanalysis of everything starts to set in, and what is real and what is not real. And hopefully we could dig into some of that tonight. So we threw it out there to Twitter earlier about having some questions about the draft and some issues that have come up. But want to go through three different segments tonight. First is an interesting thing that was brought up by Mark Schofield in our Slack channel earlier today. And it's regarding prop bets that have been posted for the draft for the first round. Nick, how much of a betting man are you?
You see, I always wanted to get into betting, but I never know where to do it. And I don't know if I have the cojones to go by and do it through nefarious means. So I just kind of don't do it. I just like to look at the lines and do it that way.
It saves you a little money that way. But there's some interesting prop bets that have been posted online at various locations. So let's go through these four that Mark posted earlier. One of which was Lamar Jackson's draft spot, over under 17.5.
I was looking at all these prop bets, man. They're all so tempting, and I'm willing to take the under on 17.5 on Lamar Jackson.
Okay. That's where I was leaning to.
I mean, the popular choice right now is Arizona at 15, which does make a lot of sense, but I can see another team falling in love and everybody's just kind of being quiet. Like, you hear all the hype around Mayfield, Rosen, Darnold, and Allen, and then Lamar Jackson's that fifth wheel. But I think a team is in love with Lamar Jackson. I think a team can really get the most out of him, and I think he's going to go before 17.5.
Okay, that was relatively easy for me, which makes me believe it's not going to happen that way. Kelvin Ridley over under 19.5, and that's interesting because it's right around Dallas's spot, who after cutting Dez is going to need a receiver. I'm willing to go under on that as well, because I think that a team like Baltimore could get Ridley. I think there are other teams up there that could, get the wide receivers. I do think he's by far the most polished route runner in this class. And if that's what guys are looking for, I think he would be the choice.
I tend to agree with you on that. Again, Baltimore and Dallas both before 19.5. So I think Calvin Ridley, both realistic landing spots right there. So I'm going to have to go with under as well. Hopefully we don't agree too much.
We got to have some dissension here. It'd be a little boring if it wasn't, but the quarterbacks in the first round, we have over under 5.5. Now that's a crazy number, because I mean at first glance it tells me I think there's gonna be a ton of money coming in on the under, but they wouldn't set that number at 5.5 if they didn't think that was close. Considering it, I mean, my first glance it was like, okay, I'll take the under, but over under 5.5 gives you pause and makes you think, okay, is there a way that there could be 6 quarterbacks in the first round?
I think they're playing it kind of like Minnesota did with Teddy Bridgewater, someone trading back up into the first round and possibly selecting Mason Rudolph, which a lot of people said was going to happen with Davis Webb last year. The guy lasted all the way to the damn third round. But I think a lot of people are, starting to hear whispers that a team might trade up into the first round and get that fifth-year option on someone like Mason Rudolph. But I'm still inclined to go under over here.
Okay, I was going under as well. See, 3 for 3, we agree. Now, Alabama players in the first round, 3.5, and this is the number. This is the one that gave me the most difficulty, because you've got Ridley, who depending on what you think of him, if you put much stock, it depends on how much the NFL puts stock in his testing numbers. Could he drop to the second? Is there a chance? Because there's not that many great receivers in this class. Deron Payne, are people putting that much stock in what he did in the playoff? I know he has a lot of flash moments, but is he going to show that consistency? And then you've got God, I'm trying to blank. Minka Fitzpatrick, who is going to go. Is going to go in the first round, and then Rashaan Evans is the other guy. You've got one. Rashaan Evans is probably the most borderline.
I would say so. Yes.
Yeah, and if I told you that Payne and Ridley went in the second round, would you be surprised?
I wouldn't be overly surprised, especially because I think teams are thinking, hey, we can wait to get guys like Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson, guys like that a little bit later on in the draft. Why, quote unquote, use, well, I was going to say waste, but use a first round pick on a receiver. Waste would not have been the right word. So let's just wait and get somebody else. So honestly, this one right here, I think I'd be okay with going under. Do you think, I remember early on in the draft process, and I haven't heard his name that much recently, and I don't think he's getting first round buzz anymore, but the safety, Ronnie Harrison. What do you think about someone like that? Because throughout the early parts of the process, you were hearing maybe the back end of the first round, but now guys like Jesse Bates, Justin Reed, they're kind of squeaking up in there. I'm guessing he doesn't get any consideration right now.
I mean, I've seen players that have been more surprising than Ronnie Harrison go in the first round.
Yeah,
so would I be surprised? Yeah, would I be surprised if Ronnie Harrison went in the first round? No, probably not. So that tells me that there's a chance that 5 could go in the first round. But I would stay away from this one. If I'm betting, I'm staying away from that one because I have no good sense of whether or not what I value. I mean, I had Rashaan Evans early second round grade. I had Fitzpatrick, Payne, and Ridley in the first round. I had Ronnie Harrison early second round grade. So I wouldn't feel confident about anything right there.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I mean, again, not the biggest betting man when it comes to that. I'm huge into the DFS portion of, I guess, that kind of sporting environment. But if I'm going to have to pick, man, I'm going to go over. I mean, I'm just going to go over. I think Rashaan Evans. Go over. Yeah, I'm going to go with Rashaan Evans getting into the – I think he should end up with a team like Pittsburgh or something along those lines. I think that would be a really smart investment for Pittsburgh's defense, especially with everything going on with Ryan there.
I'm going to refrain from answering the question so we don't agree too much. So there.
Sounds good to me, man.
Let's go. So I posted 4 poll questions earlier tonight that got a decent response from people, and trying to be as different as I could or be as polarizing as I could. But the first one I put out there was who's the first running back to go after Barkley. Got 194 responses. And as I sent it out, I hesitated because I know, or in my opinion, Geis is easily going to be the number 2 back. Mm-hmm. So I was more interested to see who the number 3 guy was going to be, but I didn't want to, because it's not a given that Geis is going to go number 2. But in my mind, it is. And in most people's minds, it is. But nothing's ever a given. Interested to see that 12% of people think Chubb is going to be the first running back to go after Barkley. What do you think about that?
I mean, I do think it's interesting. I think a lot of things has to come down to his medicals, how teams are comfortable with that knee. I mean, he showed that he still has that elite athleticism that he had, as a recruit going into Georgia and throughout Georgia before that injury. Seems like he still retained that after a pretty good combine that he had. And then you still have Sony Michel. See, I would have loved to see this question, and I wanted to ask you this as well. Mm-hmm. Who, if we did not put Geis in there, because he is kind of the consensus, quote unquote, number 2 back, who would have been that 4th back that we would have put into this question? Would have been someone like Rashad Penny, Royce Freeman, John Kelly. What direction do you think we would have went in if we did not put Geis into this question? And how would that have affected the poll?
See, I have Penny and Freeman right there with Jones, relatively close. I don't think it would have changed the poll as much. I don't think either of those guys, I don't think Freeman or Penny would have garnered much attention as far as having the 4th vote. I don't think they would have pulled. I think Chubb and Michel. I thought Michel's vote total was interesting at only 5%, because I feel like 2 months ago, Michel was getting more attention, and now it's kind of shifted to Nick Chubb a little bit. I know it seems Ronald Jones is about the same, but I would have leaned toward putting. I think Penny would have gone there, right? Do you think the consensus is that Penny is going to translate better than Freeman is? I know some people are worried about Freeman's speed. But what is your sense on that?
I think Rashad Penny, I think he would be that consensus guy that would fit in there. I mean, I want to say he's getting like 2nd round buzz from some, sources and things along those lines, which might be a little rich, but this is a very deep running back class. So I think Penny would have been that 4th guy, and what it would have done to this poll, I think it just would have, like exactly what you said, skyrocketed Chubb and Michel up and Jones up a little bit more. Penny would have gotten a couple votes from, San Diego State fans and stuff like that. But guys coming in at 80, that's not a surprise whatsoever.
Okay. The other 3 questions, well, let's get this one out of the way first because we beat a dead horse here. But does Josh Allen go number 1? And 82% said no. So given all that's come out in the media the last 48 to 72 hours, do you think that Allen going number 1 is a realistic possibility? 82% of people that responded don't believe so.
I mean, I think anything is realistic. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think Sam Darnold's the number one pick, and many people have been saying this for quite some time.
Okay. I tend to agree. Here's something for you. In NFL history, would Josh Allen be the most questionable number one pick ever, at least in recent NFL draft history, based on not about the kid, not about his skill and ability, but based on just his body of work so far? Would he be the most questionable first round pick that we've seen?
I think so. I mean, I'm trying to go through other first round picks that didn't have success at major college level. I mean, and none of them are really coming to my mind. I mean, this is somebody that you're really banking on his upside, somebody who's shown an abundant amount of accuracy issues, and somebody who everybody just likes to make mistakes for if you're in his camp. Mm-hmm. So I think so. What about you? I mean, you're more of a historian than I am.
You mean I'm older? That's what you meant.
Maybe.
Let's call it
your words.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I can't think of anyone. I mean, Courtney Brown at number 1 in 2000. Although he was, I think he was Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year last year, but he kind of came on that last year. I can't think of anyone really off the top of my head that would have been more surprising than Josh Allen. But I'm talking about surprising based on body work, because clearly it wouldn't be surprising to those on the inside in the NFL, because it appears that he's being pushed up boards. But let's look at the other two.
All right.
More justifiable number 1 overall pick. I thought this was interesting, not just because I asked it. Quentin Nelson, Saquon Barkley, or Josh Allen. Which way would you have gone before I say the results?
I think we're going to agree here, and that's Quentin Nelson. He's my number 1 ranked player overall. Josh Allen, again, like we just went over, I don't think he's worthy of the number 1 overall pick when it comes to his body of work, what he's done against Power 5 competition. I mean, you can kind of go on and on about that. And then Saquon Barkley, I think it's too early for a running back, depending on the situation. And when you look at the Giants, for instance, I just don't think that's the right course of action at number 2. So I got to go with Quentin Nelson.
I'm all about building up the lines, and Quentin Nelson would have been mine. He's my number 1 player overall. 152 people responded. We had 43% say Quentin Nelson, 38% with Barkley, only 19% at Allen, which is interesting again, just because of the positional importance of quarterback. Yeah. So I wonder if we would have put Darnold in there.
I think Darnold would have dominated the draft. I mean,
I think Darnold would have dominated it. Sure. I think it's more about the player than the position.
What do you think if we would have put a poll up there saying Rosen, Darnold, Allen, or Mayfield? I think ITP's Twitter handle, they did that maybe weeks ago. I would like for them to revisit it, possibly, just see how it's changed. Then
you have to say, I feel like there's a segment of the population that is pro Rosen.
Yeah,
but then there's a segment of the population that's anti Rosen. Darnold is a little bit more mainstream. Mm-hmm. And Josh Allen is like the far left, far like extreme both ways. And Mayfield, you don't hear much talk about Mayfield as number 1 pick anymore. I think I saw Benjamin Albright earlier tonight was posting the max, or the highest the player could go and the lowest the player can go in the draft. And of those 3 guys, I think Rosen's max was 2 actually. Mayfield's was 3, but it had Darnold and Allen being the choice at number 1. But yeah, that's interesting, because I feel like there's different thoughts on these guys based on segment of the population. But the last poll that we put out there is would you rather have, and clearly we're talking about the Browns in these scenarios. I didn't explicitly state that, but would you rather have situation A, Bradley Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Mason Rudolph? Situation B, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Mike Hughes. Or C, Sam Darnold, Bradley Chubb, and Ronald Jones.
I mean, for me, it was simple. It was C. I would much rather have Darnold, Chubb. You get that pass rusher to pair up, like we've been talking about for weeks, with Myles Garrett. You got Emmanuel Ogbah there as well. Sam Darnold, future quarterback. Tyrod can start this year. He can take a year off, work on his lower body mechanics and all those kind of things. And then you get a player like Ronald Jones. But again, I would even substitute a cornerback instead of Ronald Jones, and maybe even go for running back even later, put running back off even further. But I think C is the neat choice for me.
Good point. C would have been my choice too. I think it would be easier for me if Sony Michel was there rather than Ronald Jones. But I put someone in there that I thought would be there in the second round, even though Ronald Jones could go in the first as well. But yeah, I think it was easy for C. C got 66% of the vote, which is pretty incredible. 26% I got A, and only 8% took B. This is like the Josh Allen bashing polls.
That's what I was going to say. What if we substitute Josh Allen and B and put Sam Darnold in there? How would that change the poll? So you get Mike Hughes and you get Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would have skewed everything. I think a lot of this was about, and that would have been a good litmus test to do, is maybe we do that for next week, is put out polls with the other guys rather than Josh Allen. But, this all could change in the next week. I mean, Josh Allen, we could hear news 48 hours from now saying Sam Darnold definitely is going number one, but you never know. Let's get to some of these questions now. You want to pick one? Why don't you pick one? Lead us off.
All right, man. I'm going to go with our main man, Dave Archibald, huge contributor at Inside the Pylon, one of the unsung heroes. And his question is, Michael Vick was the number 1 overall pick. Why can't Lamar Jackson be? Stay on brand, my man. You go.
This is my favorite. I think he posted this last week. There's no reason that Lamar Jackson can't be number 1. I think the reason Lamar Jackson is not being talked about as number 1 right now, because I think it's a different NFL than it was when Vic was around. I think we've learned, or if offenses have become more efficient, and Vic was only completing about 53% of, I believe, 53% of his passes coming out of college. So I think Lamar Jackson does provide more efficient offense than Vic did. But I think there's a tendency to be scared of that type of player now, where there may be some accuracy concerns. I know, Mark Schofield, our quarterback guy from Inside the Pylon, has talked at length about some mechanical things that need to be figured out with him. But with Lamar Jackson, I don't get why he's not up there. I really don't. It's hard for me to explain, and a lot of it, I believe, has to do with body type. I think, don't you think, Nick? Like he's got a smaller frame. I think that's what pushed. It may have pushed Teddy Bridgewater down the board a few years ago, but he's 6'3", 215. He's got a strong enough arm. He showed improvement each of his 3 years at Louisville. I mean, I feel like I am beating a dead horse at this point by I going to bat Lamar Jackson all the time, because the questions I had about him last season were answered by whether or not he could be more accurate, and whether or not he watch his tape. Watch his tape before you say this guy ran a lot, so he was a running quarterback. He hung in the pocket a lot.
Yeah, and just like you were saying before, obviously you're a huge Lamar Jackson supporter. One thing I wanted to ask you, and I know this isn't generally fair, but since they both kind of have slight frames, do you think RG3 kind of flopping because of injury due to other things, do you think that kind of held against him unfairly? But I mean, something that maybe the NFL looked at.
It certainly could be. Perception is a lot. I mean, it's we fall victim to it a lot, where we look at past data, or we lean too much on past data. I especially, who's a data person, I mean, I lean a lot on past data and finding comparables for guys. So, I mean, could that be the case? Certainly it could be. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, but I mean, if RG3 doesn't get hurt, is he still a flop? Or do you think, I mean,
does he fade out? Like, does he even fade away? Does Mike Shanahan stay? Like, I mean, there's a lot of questions that can surround that.
It's a rabbit hole right there of where we can go down. But
like, does Kirk Cousins even end up being a thing?
Yeah, that's true. Same draft. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's any reason. Simple answer to this question for Dave. God bless him, because he's targeting me with this. But a simple answer is there's no reason he can't be.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one, Nick.
Okay.
Why is Josh Allen so easily in consideration when Lamar Jackson's had a better body of work than Josh Allen in college? Is it strictly the size strength component, or this arm strength component?
I mean, I kind of think so. I think he wows people when he's virtually in his underwear, throwing the football very, very far with no pressure, when he doesn't have to read the defense pre or post snap or make any of those split decisions. He can methodically go through his 3 to 5 to 7 step drop and launch the ball. And it is eye-opening, but that's not football. That is just throwing the ball in your underwear. But people see this and they think we can coach him up. Our coaching staff can do this. Our coaching staff can do that. And they get cocky. And we've seen this time and time again. It doesn't always work that way. But it does seem, I mean, that's the reason that I feel like that. And I also think Carson Wentz's success helps him out because they come from the same coaching staff and all those kind of things. I think that's another thing that people are kind of attracted to.
It's very interesting in a profession where jobs come and go very quickly, depending on team success. The teams are willing to risk or stake a large portion of their careers on a guy who they think they need to mold better. Like it's not a finished product at all. I mean, I would feel more confident if they took Rosen, McDarnold. I would feel more confident in my job. But a guy that you're going to have to, rein in and create, it's pretty incredible that people are staking their jobs on this. But I mean, if Hugh Jackson didn't get fired at 0-16 and having some questionable decisions all season, then what's it going to hurt to put Josh Allen in the position this year? Let's go with another one from Dave Archibald before we get to some of our other people from Twitter and from online from the YouTube channel here. Who is this year's Keanu Neal, who goes higher than people expect, but lands in a perfect scheme fit? I sent a message to Dave how much I love this question, because it's fantastic, because people so often talk about need and positional scarcity and those kinds of things, but it's not just a fit. It needs to be a fit too with what scheme they run. Is there anyone for you, Nick, that jumps out in that regard?
I think, and I've said this before, I think Lorenzo Carter could be somebody that not a lot of people are talking about being in the first round that can, based primarily on his athletic testing and some of the things that you do see on tape. We haven't heard his name mentioned that much in the first round. He goes out, he balls out in the combine. He looks fantastic. And when you watch his tape, he shows these athletic traits. He shows the ability to, process the game. He has a good mental side to the game. I just think I thought he needed a little bit of work on like shedding blocks at the point of attack, kind of like what Roquan Smith needs work on if you wanted to pick apart his game. When I think of the scheme, I think he could be a 3-4 edge. I mean, he's come out. He said he wants to play edge at the NFL because a lot of people may think about moving him to off ball, but I think he'd be an interchangeable piece. I think he'd be a great fit with the New York Giants, to be honest. And I've written about that before. Granted, he would have to be around in the second round for us to get him. Not 100% sure if that's going to happen.
Right. That's an interesting one. The guy that people, I think right now seems to be, when you talk about first round prospects, the most scheme dependent, maybe Josh Jackson. I think there's a lot of question about his man coverage ability, but I think people are pretty confident in his instincts and potential to play in the zone. So I think he would be a guy in the first round that could go higher than other people have him. I mean, a guy for me, I guess this wouldn't be even scheme dependent, but it's also based on how medicals are going to check out, is Maurice Hurst and how high Maurice Hurst goes. Because, if you need a penetrating 3 technique who's going to get in the backfield, I can't think of anyone better that did it better in college football last year than Maurice Hurst, at least consistently disrupting backfield. So if you can put him in that 3 technique and you got a team, if you're willing to check him out on medicals, I mean, that's another guy who could he be destined for Seattle. That's another guy in a 4-man front and that pass rush. It could be destined for Seattle. So I like that fit too. So, another good question from Dave.
Yeah.
You pick another one out there?
Yeah, I will, but I wanted to touch on a little bit. I wanted to ask you about Josh Jackson for a second. Do you think just because Josh Jackson didn't run a lot of man coverage stuff at Iowa, do you think that a reason why it's kind of being held against him, or do you think he actually would struggle?
Well, I'm saying that from the outside. I'm sure NFL teams have a better handle on it than I do. Mm-hmm. I think he has that ability, but I think he still struggled a little bit in covering deep. And I don't think that's, I forget who I was talking about this, but it's just because we only have 1 year of real good tape on Josh Jackson because he only started for 1 year in college playing behind Desmond King. But just because he hasn't done it doesn't mean he can't do it.
Exactly.
So it's how much or how well does he learn? I'm interested to see, like, at the combine when he got into those meetings with teams, how well he was learning on the chalkboard and how well he was able to process things, because that's going to be more dependent on that. And us on the outside that are not in those rooms can only assess to a certain level.
No doubt.
So to say anything as absolute is ridiculous. So I mean, Josh Jackson clearly has the talent, but that speed component you're talking about, I don't know if it's going to be. It's going to depend on how teams check him out to see, how high he goes. So good question there.
No doubt. So, I'll ask you this, man. What small school player, this is from Walter Kelly, which small school player will turn out the best in this draft?
Oh, it got to be Dallas Goedert, right? Dallas Goedert's the guy. That's kind of like the easy answer, isn't it? I feel a little bit lazy saying that, but that's the first guy that comes to mind as far as guys that are, relatively high, at least on my board. Is there someone? I mean, Kyle Lauletta.
Alex
Kappa. I like Alex Kappa. Alex Kappa is a guy that has been, Darius Leonard.
Just about to say him, yeah.
Yeah. So those are probably the four guys right now. We're talking about, I always say BCS still. I need to cut that out. It's so ingrained in me, like San Diego Chargers.
It's gonna take a while to get to the San Diego Chargers, to be honest.
Yeah, it's gonna take a little longer. And people, by the way, we'll get this out of the way right now. Marcus Davenport, I've seen been called a small school guy by other, just because he plays in 1A or.
Yeah, he's in the FBS.
He's in the FBS. He's in the FBS. I feel like a lot of people don't know that. Like, they don't know Texas San Antonio, and they don't know that it's actually in the FBS. So get that all away right now. But I think, with that question, I think it's Goedert, it's Lauletta, it's Leonard, it's Kappa. So I think those are the top guys right now that could be in that group. Owen Ravenna on Twitter. Are there any tight ends? Follow this question up, oddly enough. Are there any tight ends that should go in the first round? Nick?
I mean, honestly, I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Mike Gesicki finds his way into the first round. He comes out, and again, I didn't grind the tight end tape as hard as a lot of other people do, but I did try to sprinkle them in there throughout me watching all the edge and all the other players. But what I saw from Gesicki, it wasn't 4.55 speed on his tape, but he goes out there with those long strides, and he runs a 4.55 at the combine. What I saw on tape from him, though, is he can go up and he can make contested catches. And I really think he's going to be an important red zone weapon for whomever wants to draft him. He fit perfectly with the Saints. I could see a team late in the first round falling in love with that and wanting that piece to their red zone offense and utilizing him in that way. But do I think in the end of the day, someone will go? I'm not 100% sure, which is weird because last year we saw three tight ends go in the first round, and Gerald Everett early in the second. So it's one of those things where I don't necessarily think there's going to be one.
I'm wondering now if we're seeing a shift in tight end. I know people are always trying to find that pass catching tight end that creates mismatches, but it seems like we're skewing so far away from the physical guys that can also serve as blockers, and teams seem to be using tight ends less and less, as far as inline especially. Do you think we're seeing some kind of shift in how tight ends are used?
I mean, yes, but then you see teams like the Dallas Cowboys and you see teams like Jacksonville who really want to roll out 12 and even 13 personnel sometimes. Then you look at guys like Mike Gesicki, who aren't the most physical in the blocking game, but you could still line him up. He could be functional as a blocker, and then you can run those play action type plays and really utilize his strengths and mismatches against linebackers and safeties and things along those lines. Is that worth a first round pick? The Giants thought it was with Evan Ingram, who is functional as a blocker and is an exceptional receiver. I think Evan Ingram is better than any of these tight ends in this class, though, personally.
Yeah. I saw some talk about Hayden Hurst possibly going in the first round as well. That'd be interesting. But yeah, I'm not particularly high in this class. I don't have a first round grade on any of the tight ends. I have Goedert number 1 and Gesicki number 2, and Hayden Hurst number 3. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not thrilled with this class, but we'll see. We obviously could be wrong. Owen also posted a question. I gotta ask: is Chubb going to be like Melvin Gordon, average as a rookie, but improves when teams start giving him a lead blocker?
It's all going to depend on his situation and what team he lands on. And I mean, until we know that, we can't really answer this question, the best to our ability. So it really just depends on the fit and where he lands. Let's go over this though. What is Nick Chubb's prime best landing spot? What would be a team that he could land with right now and have one of those stellar rookie years that we would like? And let's not go with somebody like Dallas or somebody with a really good offensive line, somebody who could utilize his skill set.
Well, yeah, you got to also look for a team that doesn't have a running back either. I mean, it doesn't have a running back ingrained in their system already. I mean,
I got one. Okay.
Seattle.
Oh, Broncos draft Quentin Nelson, and then in the second round they get Nick Chubb.
Oh, see, then you're cooking with gas. Then you got something there. You got a stew. You throw that in, you got a stew.
Hey, I'm Italian, so it's a spaghetti stew. You know, you throw the marinara and the meatballs in there, you mix it all up. It's gonna be great.
I mean, look how high could he go? Because you figure that if Barkley goes top 10, is Geis even a possibility as high as 7?
See, Tampa Bay, they really did a great job shoring up their offensive line and their defensive line, which were their two biggest needs. They really need to focus on that secondary. I don't think it would be the most ridiculous thing in the world. I personally love Darius Geis, and I just do not want him to fall to the Eagles. I don't think he will fall to the Eagles, but a lot of people are mocking it that way. I don't think it's unrealistic for Nick Chubb to go in the first round. At the end of the day, I don't think he will. I think he'll be somewhere in that mid-second round range, but I wouldn't be overly shocked if he did go in the first round.
Nick Chubb to Pittsburgh.
That would spell the end of Le'Veon Bell.
Well, yeah, I mean, they'd be essentially playing chicken with another team that is a nice compliment to the guy they took last year would be Carolina.
Yes, that would be a great compliment.
Because Nick Chubb, I've seen comp to Jonathan Stewart. He's got that power back ability. That would be interesting. But yeah, it's all going to depend on fit with him, on whether or not. And to say lead blocker anymore is kind of funny because not a lot of teams are using the fullback.
Hey, I mean, don't you disparage Tommy Bohannon.
I was reading something. I think it was 61% of plays were 11 personnel last year.
That doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, the Giants were like 95% of their plays were 11 personnel. Got embarrassed.
Yeah. And it's a trend that's continued upward and upward. So, I mean, the death of the fullback, unfortunately, I'll put my William Henderson jersey away.
Mike Allstott, man. Mike Allstott. So
we're going down the rabbit hole of great fullbacks.
I know. So I got a question. This is more geared towards me, but we'll ask it. It's from my man Bryce Rossler. If the Giants do the unspeakable and remain at second overall to take Saquon Barkley, what, if anything, could Barkley do to justify the pick? I want to preface this by saying it is not Saquon Barkley's fault, and it should not be held against him if he's the second overall pick by the Giants. He's going to come in here, and I wouldn't doubt that he would be a Pro Bowler. I just do not feel that is how you allocate your resources as the Giants with a pick that's going to have so much leverage. So many people want to trade up. You can get your quarterback. You can get a pass rusher that can be on your team for 10 years. The running backs do not get paid that much. The NFL is telling you how valued the running backs are when it comes to how much they get paid in that reference. It seems like teams are drafting running backs and then not re-signing them to these long-term deals because they don't want to pay them. We just saw CJ Anderson and players like that get cut. Do you have another take on that?
On the running back, like the running back scarcity and running backs getting taken that high.
That and the Giants pick, because I think Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, those were situations where you wanted those running backs for identity. You had offensive lines in place. That was going to be the team. That is not the New York Giants right now, and the Giants have so many holes on this roster.
And that's funny. So there's two ways. There's two ways I'm looking at this. Is that was the identity of the Giants when they were successful. So whether or not they're in some like time warp where they think that that's the identity of their team again, that's the only way that they can get back to success would be misplaced because they've got some aerial weapons right now that would really be great. And I hope they're not just simply saying, "Hey, you know what's been missing why we were bad? It's because we haven't had a running game." Like it's not that simplistic. It just isn't. They have other holes out there right now that would be better suited. I would say, Nick, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, that if we're talking about Giants' identity when they're successful, I associate the Giants' identity when they're successful more with their defensive front than I do more so than like Brandon Jacobson, Ahmad Bradshaw, and that group of running backs that they had when they were able to grind it down when Eli wasn't on. I think Bradley Chubb would be the correct pick here by far.
If they're going to stay at 2, I'm all about trading back.
If they stay at 2, right. Yeah. If they stay at 2.
Or getting the quarterback. That's what I'm all about with the Giants. But again, they had good offensive lines when they were doing that. Guys like Sean O'Hara, Chris Snee, Rich Soiber, players that weren't as, I guess, popular because they're offensive linemen. The Giants do not have that right now. And that's Saquon Barkley would be like, people think he's going to be a bust for New York. He won't be a bust. He could potentially be a Pro Bowl. I just do not think that's the way you build this team with a pick that you could trade. You can get so much for that pick, or you can get your franchise quarterback. We look at the Jets right across town, man. They've been looking for a quarterback for freaking decades, man. And I don't want the Giants to be that way. So it's either you love a quarterback, you trade back, you get assets, or you get that premier pass rusher. To me, it's not Saquon Barkley at 2. And I say that with the caveat that he's probably going to be a Pro Bowl player.
Right. But you're also the chance to take a Pro Bowl guard or a Pro Bowl pass rusher too. So we got a question here from the YouTube chat from John Liberakis. John, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. 3 years from now, who is the most dominant 3-down defensive tackle in this class? I kind of tipped my hand earlier at who I thought, but I'm interested to hear who you have to think.
Honestly,
or who you have to say.
Medicals check out. I'm going to go with Maurice Hurst as well. I do think he just has that first step, that quickness to shoot. So I kind of want to eliminate Maurice Hurst from this. And I think a guy like Nathan Shepard could squeak his way into this. I think Taven Bryan as well. Me and you have gone back and forth. I'm a little higher on Bryan than you are. You concerned with the production. I think he could be molded because he has those high athletic traits. But Nathan Shepard, obviously coming from a D2 school, this guy was triple teamed, double teamed all the time. He needs to be taught where to place his hands and things along those lines. But he has the quickness, he has the strength, he has the body and the mental processing to play, in my opinion. I think Nathan Shepard could be somebody who you can get possibly on day 2, 3rd round, if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Somebody who could really surprise, man. Yeah.
I was talking about this with someone else the other day, and I think when people stack their boards from top to bottom and within positions, I think a lot of it depends on your risk tolerance as well, and how much you're willing to equate traits. How important are traits to you? How much of a finished product they are? How important is that to you? And that's completely different from person to person. And I think it's completely different from organization to organization. And that's why no one's mock draft has ever been correct, because we don't know what's going on. But I think if we're talking 3-down defensive tackle, the guy that, if he turns it on all the time, Daron Payne.
Okay.
If he can bottle up what happened in the playoff and how he produced in the national championship game, I think he could be a terror, an absolute terror. But we've seen other guys, and I guess I wasn't as high on Jaron Reed and Ashawn Robinson coming out because they really haven't done much so far in the NFL. And I know we don't want to group all these defensive tackles together because they went to Alabama, because that's not the appropriate way to categorize them. But Daron Payne was hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. And it's how much of that was because it was Alabama and there were certain games where they didn't have to turn it on that much. But when the bright lights were on, he was possibly the best player on the field.
Yeah, Daron Payne, he's scoring touchdowns, getting interceptions in big games and things along those lines. But he's another one. Like, he's a little bit different than Ashawn Robinson, who was more of, I guess, the one technique, kind of bigger body. Payne has that quickness off the snap. He can shoot gaps and do those kind of things that are intriguing to teams. So that would be somebody who would be a 3-down kind of player. But again, that's the big concern. Is he going to be able to do that at a consistent rate? Because we just have not seen that at college. Are you buying Vita Vea as a 3-down player? I think he can be. I think he can be. Vita Vea, you don't see. I think it's unfair that he gets mocked to as Danny Shelton because they're just two gigantic men coming from the same school. But he is very big and he is very athletic. But again, his motor is sort of hot and cold, which is concerning. But I think he could be if he lands in the right spot. And I think teams are going to fall in love with him. He more than likely is going to go in the top, I would say 20, top 15. Okay. Do you agree with that or no? Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I totally agree. Another question. What should the Titans do with the 25th pick if Vander, Esch, and Evans is gone? Trade down or take the best player available? It's coming from the YouTube chat right now. So somebody who I think would be a good fit with the Titans is someone like Sam Hubbard, but you could probably trade down. Now, trading down and collecting assets is something that I think any franchise, I'm always of that mindset. So that would be something that I would be willing to pursue. And yeah, that's something that it's where I'm at right there when it comes to the Titans. Yeah, it's with the Titans. Are you stuck taking a linebacker there? Do you think linebacker is the greatest need with the Titans right now? Well, Evans and Vander Esch are gone. So that means Roquan and Edmonds are gone. So what linebacker are you going with? There's no one there. Yeah. But I even if Evans and Vander Esch are there, I guess is what I'm saying is I don't even know if that would be my top concern. I understand that people want to get a linebacker in Tennessee, but I feel like wide receiver, they invested heavily in Corey Davis last year and their offensive line is pretty shore up. Yeah, They bring in Benny Logan. They re-signed Daquan Jones, which was a good re-signing on the low key. Wesley Woodyard, I want to say he's on his last year of his contract. I'm not 100% sure. And then you got Nate Palmer starting at the other inside linebacker spot. So they could use a linebacker. Derek Morgan's getting up there in age. Brian Arakpo's getting up there in age for their edge positions at outside linebacker. So, I mean, that's why I think someone like Sam Hubbard could potentially fit. But again, depends on what they want to do with Sam Hubbard's weight. And I don't know if you want to do that in the first round.
Right. Good point. Derek Benson, ITP from Slack. How many receivers could be taken to the first round?
Okay. How many?
When he says could, that we could say 32 could be taken in the first round.
I mean, potentially 32 could go in the first round. Let's be realistic.
But no, it's not going to happen.
DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Cortland Sutton. Those three are all potential guys. I mean, I would say two of them for sure would make it. It really depends on what a team is going to like. Then you got guys like Anthony Miller, who are probably going to be on the outside, second round, Michael Gallup, second round, and Christian Kirk around the second round. So other than those guys that I just named, is there anybody else that can squeak in and kind of be a surprise first round pick?
See, I'm higher on Anthony Miller. Again, it depends on how teams are rating route running versus size.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw the three receivers last year. The three guys, I think the three consensus first round receivers last year, and John Ross, Mike Williams, and Corey Davis. Those are the three guys everyone had in the first round. They all went within the first 9 picks, and then we didn't see anyone until after that. Trying to look, based on previous years, what we've seen. Corey Coleman, Doxson, Fuller, Treadwell. We had 4 the year before, and all those guys were pretty well projected to go in the first round. I think some people had Michael Thomas in the first round as well, but he dropped to the second. So I think people are, pretty spot on as far as who's projected to go in the first versus who kind of sneaks in there. I know Nelson Aguilar a couple of years ago snuck into the first. Philip Dorsett a couple of years ago snuck into the first. So I'm more prone to go one over what we think it's going to be.
Okay, so you want to go with 4. You think someone potentially like DJ Chark could first round?
Yeah, that's like the size skill guy that the Raiders could take if they're crazy enough. That's like Darius Hayward Bay all over again. But
Al Davis,
he's coming up from the beyond.
From the afterlife.
I mean, you think Cortland Sutton's definitely a first round pick right now?
I don't think any of them are definitely first round picks. I think Cortland Sutton, I think it will be intriguing for the Cowboys to look at him at 19, a local product, all that kind of jazz. Plus, he fits that mold of the big bodied receiver, sort of in the ilk of Des Bryant. Obviously not the same kind of player, but still the big body. So I don't think he'll definitely, but I definitely think he's a consideration. If I were to say 3 wide receivers that I would put the most, I guess, chips in the basket of going in the first round, it'd probably be Moore, Sutton, and Ridley.
Yeah, given all the smoke around DJ Moore, it would be an absolute shock not to see him go in the first round.
Yes.
So I think given DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley and my +1 factor, even though I'm kind of iffy on Sutton, I would say 3.
Yeah. I mean, I'm cool with going with 3 as well, because again, I could see Sutton going in day 2. He's definitely not a lock. Really, none of them are. I think Ridley at the end of the day definitely will. I think Moore will. But outside that, those are the only 2 I'm really confident in. But I would not be shocked if 2 other ones squeaked in.
Got it. Okay. Pick another one out there.
Let's do it. Favorite day 2 edge guys. Favorite day 2 offensive tackles from Mr. Dave Archibald. You want to take the offensive tackles? I'll take the edge guys. And we'll bounce them off.
Dave just throwing out questions all day today. Appreciate it, Dave. Appreciate the love. Favorite, man, I don't like this offensive tackle class, but if I had to bank on one guy on day 2, it's Jamarco Jones.
Jamarco Jones? Yeah, that's a very...
I don't think you're getting a finished product with any of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Martinez Rankin is a guy from Mississippi State who, if his medical checks out, he's another guy that's had medical concerns. Brian O'Neill is an athletic specimen, but needs to develop at that position. Not as refined a player. I guess I'm gonna blanket this Jamarco Jones and Brian O'Neill, because I think there's so much that could be there, and given the fact there really is not many guys considered a sure thing in this offensive tackle class, even guys like Crosby and Connor Williams are potential offensive guards in the future. I think Jamarco Jones and Brian O'Neill, to me, are the guys that I'd be looking at day 2. just because the upside for them trumps any of the other guys and what they already can provide for you, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I was going to say Terrell Crosby. And again, I do understand that he could be moved inside. His arms were sub 33, but he has monstrous hands. He's a very powerful type of blocker. And I kind of do expect that kind of game that he does provide. So Terrell Crosby would be somebody that I would be looking for. And
yeah, it's weird. It's weird, man, because I have Crosby and I have Orlando Brown rated higher in my big board than Jamarco Jones and Brian O'Neill. But, as players now, and I guess we gun to my head right there. I mean, I guess I would take the upside just because I'm not 100% sold on the other guys. I just feel like Orlando Brown, when you watch him in college, there's just so much there that it'd be tough to just give up on him as if he's a day 2 pick. If he's a first round pick, you'd have trouble taking him in the first round right now. But if he's a day 2 pick, I think you'd be more prone to try be able to take the risk. But who's your day 2 edge guy?
It'd be Sam Hubbard. He's more than likely. I wouldn't be totally shocked if he squeaked in the first round, but he's more than likely going to be there in day 2. I mean, Sam Hubbard to me, and I think it's been understated, and his 3-cone really proved it, is his change of direction is ridiculous, and they really utilized him on stunts and twists and things of that nature. And I think if he does shed some weight, you could potentially play him as an outside linebacker who can cover. He looked pretty good in the drills doing that at 270 pounds. Now, he went out at the pro day and ran a terrible 40, which doesn't help his case. But I think if you get a guy like Sam Hubbard, a guy who has not been playing in the trenches all that long, but is refined with his hand technique and the way he takes on blocks, the way he sheds blocks, not the greatest athlete in the world, but I honestly think that's going to be a steal. And he's going to be one of those kind of players in your defense, lunch pail kind of players who's going to get it done. And he has, I believe he can get 8-9 sacks in a year once he kind of gets into his system, especially if he's the second pass rusher opposite of another stud.
I referenced him the other day as possibly having the lowest. He may have the lowest ceiling, but I think he also has the highest floor for some of these edge rushers in the class.
See, I don't know if he does have the lowest ceiling. I've seen a lot of people say that. I think, again, like I said, he wasn't the most athletic, but I think his athleticism, I think he just kind of gets generalized as, oh yeah, he's not that athletic. But I think there's a little bit more to it. I think he does have a little bit more athleticism than people tend to give him credit for, if that makes sense.
I guess I'm more confident in his floor, I should say, than I am the other guys. I'm more confident that he's not going to completely bust out.
Does he have the highest floor of all the? I mean, he might, to be honest, in my opinion. I mean, Bradley Chubb. I mean, you got to I might want to X him out of it, to be honest, because he's kind of the consensus number 1. But Xing him out of it, he might have the highest floor. Like, I cannot see a situation where Sam Hubbard busts unless he suffers serious injury.
This is maybe my favorite question. I said that about a couple already, so don't take my word for it. But is this the best class for interior offensive line ever?
It's damn good. Honestly, it's very good. I wouldn't be able to confidently say yes or no to that question, but this is a very deep interior offensive line class, and that kind of begs the question, will guys like Isaiah Wynn, will guys like even Quentin Nelson fall just a little bit because teams can get really good value in the mid-rounds?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that with a resounding yes. Now, I have to reference this with the fact that I'm 34, so ever to me is not ever, but forever. But it's, but I've kept track of grades since 2002, and this is the first draft I've had more than 2 first-round grades on an interior offensive lineman, and I have 4.
Yeah. So your 4 right now are Wynn, Nelson, Hernandez, and you said interior offensive lineman in general, right? Billy Price?
James Daniels.
Okay.
I have Billy Price and Frank Ragnow both as high seconds too. And the concern with both of them is my own hypotheticals about medicals. Again, there's the medical questions around both of them. So I had a very hard time convincing myself not to prop them up into the first round, because I think all 6 of those guys are going to be outstanding starters at the next level. That's insane. It's insane to think.
What about Austin Corbett?
Austin Corbett, I've got a 3rd-round grade on, but again, another guy I like. I've got in my top 100, I have 9 interior offensive linemen.
Holy crap, that is a lot of interior offensive linemen.
That's a lot. Braden Smith and Mason Cole are the other 2. But they've shown to be over the course of time. Interior offensive linemen don't. I mean, I say this as I'm looking at Jonathan Cooper and Chance Warmack's name, but offensive linemen or interior offensive linemen don't tend to bust out that much, especially guys taken relatively high. It's you usually get what you pay for there. It's last year we saw was it Forrest Lamp and who's the other guy in the first round? Forrest Lamp and Pat Elflein were guys that had first round grades on last year that dropped to the second round. And then 2016, yeah, I can't believe I haven't had more than 2 grades on a first round. I mean, but Warmack and Cooper, that was 2 top 10 guys, interior offensive line, and they both just flamed out. At least they're still kicking around still, but as far as getting that impact that you expect from them, they haven't had it. But yeah, I think this is, at least in my lifetime, this is probably the best interior offensive line class. No,
that makes plenty of sense. I mean, there are a lot of people to consider in the first and second round, and it's going to be exciting. And again, look, guys, every year, Kevin Zeitler, Kelechi Osemele, Andrew Norwell this past year, they just reset the market for the interior offensive linemen getting money in their pocket. So you got to block Fletcher Cox, man. You got to block these interior defensive linemen. So it's a very big priority. Let's see another question. So who do you think will be drafted way too high and who will be drafted way too low by our good friend Justin?
Ooh, see, way too high to me and way too low to you, or way too low to me, is different than it is to you. Now, who in my opinion is going to be drafted way too high? Josh Allen. No, yeah. We got to pick another Josh Allen. Connor Williams.
Colton Miller, man.
Colton Miller, you think? Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, that would be – I pointed out, yeah, Colton Miller, I guess, would be – if he goes before that. I mean, Connor Williams is the guy I think Marcus Davenport could go too high.
Yes. We've been talking about that on a few different shows. I do believe he can be drafted.
It was you that said this. I think you said Marcus Davenport to the Vikings, right?
Yes.
That would be terrifying to me.
That'd be ideal.
That would be ideal because the process for him isn't rushed.
It's not rushed. He can learn behind Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin. I think that would be a great situation for the Vikings and be a great situation for Marcus Davenport. But I also think they need a center right now, if I'm not mistaken. Is Pat Elflein going to move to guard, or is Pat Elflein going to be their true center? I'm not sure, but they need interior offensive linemen as well. There's plenty of people to pick from, as we just alluded to.
I thought Elflein was moving to center, but don't quote me on that.
I think you're right.
Elflein was moving to center.
Either way, I think
a lot of sense.
Yes, it would. But could you imagine if they got Billy Price or somebody like that to really shore up that interior offensive line?
Yeah.
Ohio State, too.
And Justin said who was going to be too low or drafted too low?
Yes.
The question?
Yes. So I'm trying to think of somebody who would be a really, really good value in like the 4th and 5th round, because I'm tending to like go with guys like Sam Hubbard, guys that I'm very high on that we've been talking about. I'm trying to spice it up a little bit here. So someone who's going to be drafted way too low.
Too low right now. I feel like Jesse Bates from Wake Forest. Are people going to see what most people that watch the film see? Because do people in the NFL think as highly about him as some other people do?
I've been hearing his name kind of skyrocketing up the boards a little bit.
Yeah.
I got someone who's going to be drafted a little bit too low. Lamar Jackson.
There we go.
We got to stay on brand right here, but Lamar Jackson, if he's going to go in the outside of the top 20, it's what is going on, especially when you have guys like Josh Allen, to answer the other part of the question, going in the top 5. How the hell does that make any sense?
Josie Jewell is the guy from Iowa that I like. But again, that's more about a position thing, because I still think there are interior linebackers getting drafted too low based on the fact that teams have doubts whether they can be every down linebackers. Because I think that's more or less teams now are trying to get those guys that can play in the nickel and play never come off the field. But I don't have those same concerns about Josie Jewell. He's a guy I like a lot, and I think could go too low. So that would be my call right there, I think. Be Josie Jewell.
Yeah, no, Josie Jewell, again, I think a lot of people look at tape against Penn State, and people knock him because Saquon Barkley kind of exposed his quote unquote lack of athleticism. But Saquon Barkley is an elite athlete.
Right. I think the guy we missed this one at too high is maybe DJ Chark.
You think he's going to go too high because he kind of lacks that
technical?
So. Yeah, that's definitely something. And again, you're kind of banking on that upside. You're banking on the athleticism. And we kind of been talking about that this entire podcast about how teams are going to think they can mold players who might be a little bit raw and just kind of bank on that upside. I got a quarterback question for you, though, my man.
Ooh, okay.
This is from our buddy Nick Turgeon of Inside the Pylon. He says, we talk a lot about these first round quarterbacks, but let's go after some of these second and third round quarterbacks. Who, other than the top 6, because we'll include Mason Rudolph into this, who are some of these quarterbacks that really entice you? And let's try not to mention Kyle Lauletta because we talk about him a lot.
No. That's what I had teed up. God, quarterbacks outside of those guys Mason Rudolph, just, he is what he is at this point. Love him or hate him, he is what he is. I think he's a nice second option for some people. Logan Woodside. How about Logan Woodside?
Logan Woodside, the kid from Marshall too.
Oh, Chase Litton.
Yeah. I think he has requisite arm strength. I mean, again, he's not going to step in to be a day one starter or anything like that, but I think that's somebody you could take a flyer on in the 6th round and be perfectly happy with.
It's weird because Logan Woodside put up huge numbers at Toledo and is going to get knocked for having an average arm probably and being a little undersized. I think he's 6'1". Is he 6'1"? 6'1", 200, 6'2", 200, somewhere on there, which I guess is undersized. He may not have the body mass that other people are looking for, but he's accurate and smart. And when you're taking a quarterback, later in the draft, that's kind of who you want, isn't it? Yeah, people, some positions you go for upside, but later in the draft, if you're looking for a quarterback, because the tendency is like the more skilled quarterbacks, even if they don't, like Josh Allen, if this is like the Josh Allen drinking contest right now for this. So you mentioned Josh Allen, but
the audience would be absolutely hammered right now.
But Logan Woodside it put up huge numbers, is accurate, and is intelligent, and he's started a ton. So I don't understand why he's so low right now, because I like Logan Woodside a lot. I would probably take Logan Woodside as high as the 4th round, late 4th. If I'm one of those teams, like a good team at the end of the late 4th, I'm considering Logan Woodside.
Yeah, I think Logan Woodside, and again, like we said, Chase Litton, I think those are some guys that you can get in the later rounds that can come in. I mean, they can compete for a backup role, and you can try to mold them. Nick Schomanek's another name that I've seen thrown out there a bunch, took over for Patrick Mahomes and everything like that. So there are a couple names that could be enticing. But do you remember last year, some of these quarterbacks, guys like Brad Kaya, guys who are just seem like they're out of the NFL right now? I'm wondering if some of these guys will have a similar fate, which would be unfortunate.
That's weird because Brad Kaya was more of a project, wasn't he? I know he started a lot in Miami, but he still had some developmental concern. He wasn't as accurate as you wanted quarterback to be. That's the thing is, if I'm picking a guy there that's going to hold a clipboard a lot, I need him to come in just to kind of stem the tide if a guy gets hurt. I want him to be accurate. And I want him to be smart.
Yes,
and tough.
Kaya came out a year early. Probably should have stayed in school.
Yes, undoubtedly.
So,
undoubtedly. Let's take a couple more, and then we'll sign off for the night. This is a big picture question. So you ready for it?
I am. I'm always ready.
Are the Minnesota Vikings the next big NFL dynasty? And if they're not, who do you think is?
Okay, well, first let's lay this question out. How many Super Bowls do you have to win to be a dynasty? Because how many dynasties have we seen of late? I mean, I don't really want to group the Seahawks in there. It's just really the Patriots and the Niners, right? And Dallas too.
Yeah, I mean, I consider a dynasty. How many conference championships can you get to in like a 10-year period?
Okay. I think so. Minnesota already has one, which is definitely something. I think there's two teams that really come to my mind right now. And San Francisco is kind of sitting on the outside of it, depending on how they evolve this season. But the Rams and Minnesota, unfortunately for both of us being NFC fans, they're NFC teams. But those are the two teams that really jump out to me. I mean, Minnesota, they're retaining a lot of this defensive talent. They bring in Kirk Cousins. They have a smart-ass coach, and he's starting to get the recognition that he deserves. Dalvin Cook is still there, coming back from the injury. Offensive line seems to be in place. Rick Spielman's doing an absolutely incredible job. Sucks, man, because I know you're a Green Bay fan, but Minnesota and the Rams would be my two picks.
Minnesota, the Rams.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to pick the same teams because I think there's a number of worthy candidates right now. But I think the first thing you look at when you're looking at these potential dynasties is who's got a young quarterback that could be on the up and up. And
man, I know where you're going though.
Do you really?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's the team I didn't want to mention because they're in my division.
It's not the Eagles.
Nah, screw them. They're gonna be good for so long, man. Howie's smart.
The team I was thinking about is Houston.
Oh, okay. No, that's actually really interesting.
It's with Deshaun Watson there, and I mean, you could also pick Jacksonville in the same division.
I was just about to say that.
If depending on that defense versus that offense for years to come. I mean, that AFC South for years was on the downturn, but now it seems like they're going to be. I mean, when you have a team quarterback, Andrew Luck is the worst team in the division. That's saying something. So Houston stuck out to me when I was pondering this question. Obviously, LA, obviously Philly, and obviously who's the other team you brought up? I'm blanking right now. Vikings.
I know you're trying to get them out of your head. I understand.
I really am, but. See, the problem is you also want to look for a team that doesn't have much competition in their division, where San Francisco and LA kind of match up with each other. I mean, the NFC South, I mean, you don't really see a young team there that's ready to take that. I mean, is Tampa going to take the next step eventually?
I think eventually they will, but I don't think Atlanta's going anywhere. And with Drew Brees in New Orleans, they're not going to go anywhere. Carolina, they're still a little bit up in the air. They're losing their coordinators every year, it seems like now. And
I mean, this is a tipping point year I think this is going to be an interesting year for the Bears.
Yes. No, I totally agree. I could see the Bears winning 6 games.
I think they're on that next step below what we're talking about is like being able to look at them as a potential dynasty in the future. I think they're kind of where the Rams and Eagles were maybe 1 or 2 years ago. But yeah, that would be – but I think your calls in saying the Rams seeing your Rams and the Vikings probably worthy. And then the Eagles. I mean, the thing with the Eagles, though, is they have a lot of veteran guys on the team.
They do.
I mean, the youthful guys on their roster, as far as guys that have been in the league less than, say, 5 years, I mean, there's not that many, is there? I mean, you've got Wentz, who's obviously the most important. But you're going to have to be replacing Jason Peters soon.
Yes.
I mean, but every team is like this. Every NFL team is like this, and you see turnover year to year and year out. But it's about having those core pieces in place that can get you that. I think the Eagles are going to be good, but it's how long they can sustain that. So, Nick, why don't you take the last question here for us?
All righty, let's look at the question. So, at his pro day, we'll go with Tom Mead's question. Tom Mead of Inside the Pylon. At his pro day, Belichick spent a lot of time with Chubb and told him they're picking 30. They'll never have a chance at him. Now they have the picks to go and get him. Is there a scenario where they go and get him?
Oh, I'm never ruling Belichick out of anything.
And again, we're talking about Bradley Chubb.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just to lay that out just in case.
Yeah. So what would they have to give up right now?
I don't think they're going to go and do that. Doesn't seem like their MO to trade up significantly to get a pass rush. So, I mean, it's kind of out of the question for me if they're going to do anything. And this is actually a scenario I kind of wanted to bring up, kind of piggyback off this specific question. If they go up and get a quarterback, which isn't ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying they're going to trade to 2, but if they just trade up, if Rosen does fall or something along those lines, is Tom Brady retired? Because like this, it seems very contentious right now, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and everything going on with them. And if they trade up and not replenish this roster that has a lot of holes in it, you think Tom Brady would take that personally? No,
I think they would. I think he would.
Yeah,
I absolutely think he would. The trade up, a trade up I'm looking at right now.
I want to know.
a certain team they just pulled a big deal off with.
The Browns?
No, the Patriots would trade up 23 and 31, and they're second, and a future first or second. So you move up to 9 for San Francisco's pick.
Okay, that's I was thinking about Danny Shelton. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo's a much bigger deal than that. But yes,
much bigger deal than Danny Shelton.
Yeah, like, oh, they made a big deal with it. I'm like, oh, they made the Danny Shelton trade. I don't think that's big, but
well, I'm just thinking because at that spot you're talking about jumping in front of Miami, Buffalo, and Arizona, who all could be taking quarterbacks, and how for all we know, Baltimore and the Chargers could be considering it too as replacements for their quarterbacks. But yeah, I don't think it's interesting. I don't know if he's necessarily done, but if Tom Brady can't see that he's 41 going 42, and I mean, why should the organization not plan for their future?
No, that makes sense. But the way I look at it from Tom's perspective is you traded away Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like we got to the Super Bowl and we were right there, and we have these holes on this roster. We lose Deion Lewis, we lose Malcolm Butler, and we can still compete. We're dominating the AFC. But now you're trading all these assets to go and get my replacement when we were just in the Super Bowl. And maybe if you, Coach Belichick, started Malcolm Butler, we don't lose that game. It's a big slap in the face. And it seems like all this Alex Guerrero stuff that's coming out of New England with his personal trainer and not getting along with the team and all that kind of nonsense, it seems like it actually has become an issue with a team that we have a lot of issues with over the last 10 years. Yeah,
it's interesting, but I would be. We always wait for them to do something huge in the draft, and they don't always. It doesn't always work out that way. So yeah, I mean, we've got a week to go, man. A week to go. We'll know. We'll have some answers on some stuff. Finally. But why? Here's one. I want to get to this one before we go. We'll end on this one. We hear a lot of talk about. Tom Mead question again. We hear a lot of talk about Darnold, Allen, and Mayfield. Why is Rosen the forgotten man?
We've talked about this, man. We've talked about this, I want to say, quite a bit. And me personally, I think it's a bunch of unfair preconceived notions that might date back to when the kid was like a freshman. And the fact that he is raised, God forbid, in an environment that challenges him intellectually. He's too smart for his own good. He asks questions. He asks why. All this millennial bullcrap, I think is nonsense. And I think a team's going to get really lucky if he does end up slipping. I really don't fully understand why that's the narrative that's been building around Josh Rosen. But for whatever reason, that is the narrative. Maybe it's not the truth, though. Maybe the Giants are in love with him. Maybe the Jets are. We don't really know what the NFL teams are thinking. But in a week, 4 minutes, a week from today, we'll find out.
My thoughts exactly, my man. Well, Nick, buddy, thanks a lot. This has been great. Enjoy doing this. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. This was a lot of fun, and we hopefully do this again soon. This was kind of cool to do and do it in a different environment than we typically do with the podcast. But we'll definitely do something. We're planning on staying in touch with the Inside the Pylon Twitter feed to see what we have planned for the draft night and the draft days. Now it's just multiple 3 days, not 2 days. We're going to have some stuff planned for those days and the content on the website. Most importantly, if you haven't already, go to itpdraftguide.com, pick up your copy of our draft guide. Our team of scouts put in a ton of work, and we're very proud of the product and really want everyone to get their eyes on this because we think it's one of the best out there. There's a ton of support the people in the draft community that are putting these guides out. Because people put a lot of work into this stuff, and they take pride in it, and that's definite about our team at Inside the Pylon. Nick, anything I missed?
No, you covered the ITP draft guide. Great analysis. You're very, very good looking on the damn cam with your headphones on, my man. So doing some great stuff.
If anyone wants to help out, staying up with a 3-month-old, that'd be fantastic. But no one? Okay, great, good. Nick, not you. Not you? You got class?
Yeah, I got class at midnight right now, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you really?
No, hell no.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to post this online. Check back later and check everything that's going on Inside the Pylon. Have a good night, everybody.